Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with New Mexico native Sheldon Pickering. He opened up about his latest 2019 CD called Blessed Assurance, his fifth studio album. This album is full of 7 instrumental tracks arranged and performed by Sheldon. He strives to convey peace, joy, and inspiration through the music he creates and shares to the world. At this point, he has separated his art from any particular agenda, and he does it simply because he loves it. And he opened up about that and so much more. So please get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Sheldon, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for the opportunity.
You bet. So let's dive right in here and let's talk about your newest CD that's coming out. It's your 5th studio album, Blessed Assurance. And I want you to kind of talk to me about what went into this project and what you want the listener to get from what you put out.
I think largely what went into this project was peace. I kind of approached it from a different angle. I drove through some of the most beautiful country in the nation and went to Zion's Canyon on the way, which the studio I use is really close by there. Just tried to kind of capture the peace of the countryside, kind of what it means to me, and then tried to take that feeling with me into the studio as I did it, and just kind of maintain that kind of otherworldly, kind of out of nature experience. And I think it kind of reflected in the peaceful nature of this project.
When a listener makes a commitment, especially in this modern world that's saturated with so much music, when they make that commitment to get your disc or to get it online and they want to spend some time with this, what do you want them to get from this experience?
I think I want them to get the same thing, kind of that feeling of peace and just kind of connectedness with nature, with some of the better things that are in life. I think that, like you said, it is kind of chaotic, the world we live in right now. Just being able to listen to something that will take you out of that for a moment and kind of provide a break and a reprieve from it. I think if it can do that for the listener, it's been a success for me.
So talk to me about where you were born and raised.
I was born and raised in New Mexico, in an area known as the Four Corners, where 4 states kind of connect to each other, and there's actually a national monument there, about 45 minutes away from it, where people can go put one appendage in each state. And I was born in a town called Farmington. It's really kind of a cool place because it's a high desert, but yet in the 45, about an hour drive away, you can be in the mountains of Colorado at ski resorts. 2 hours away is Canyon de Chelly. Just beautiful, really kind of a nice town. Smaller town feel. And just good people, really good people. It was a great town to grow up in. It really was.
So talk to me about how you got involved in jazz and what some of your early influences were.
Interestingly enough, one of my most early influences I can remember was the Weather Channel.
Cool.
I went to Albuquerque and we stayed in this kind of apartment complex near a hospital when my grandfather was getting chemo radiation treatments in about 1985. And for some reason or another, I'd never tuned into the Weather Channel, I guess, and that just happened to be what was on that day. And I first heard this jazz. I didn't even know what it was. It was just these different chords and structure to music. But, I was so intrigued, and I was always intrigued with music. One of my first toys that I ever had was a Fisher Price tape recorder. And my ear was just always plugged into that thing, no matter what it was. Music just fascinated me from a very early age. But hearing those chords and those textures that I'd never heard before was just total ear candy. It just really threw me for a loop at that young age and really kind of piqued that interest of how do I hear more of that? How do I make that?
How did everything begin for you as far as getting on the stage the first time, kind of steamrolling into a career? How did all that happen?
I was probably 6 years old, and a concert pianist came to our town, and he has this tradition of calling up all the kids kind of around him. And I happened to be the only one that he happened to pick out of the audience and put on his lap and kind of played this masterpiece with my pinky, while his left hand danced across the keyboard. And I just knew, man, I've got to play the piano. This is so amazing. And so then, we had a young artist recital thing, and so I'd get on the stage and do that and play for performances and kind of competitions and things in our state locally. In early high school, I had a band director approach me and say he really needed a keyboardist for the jazz band. And I was pretty reluctant because I enjoyed, not having many commitments in high school, just being able to kind of coast through. And but I did it, and he taught us these things called the blues scale, and we just practiced the blues scale. Okay, we're doing this blues scale, and we drilled. And the blues scale really opened up that door for me, and kind of was kind of that window to exploring some of those sounds that I had always heard, but hadn't been able to duplicate. When I was 16 and got a driver's license, I went down to a hotel restaurant and got a job on Friday night playing the piano, and quickly realized that people didn't necessarily want to listen to Bach and Beethoven all night for their dinner music. They like the kind of jazz standards and things like that. So it really kind of put a challenge on me to have to create a style and find a style that the people enjoyed listening to, for one, and kind of exposed me to some new elements. And then there was a place across the street, another hotel restaurant that picked me up. And so through high school on the weekends, I was playing these hotel restaurants and playing piano. And it was really a cool gig for a high school student. At least I thought it was. It was fun, most people work at the movie theater or, fast food, and it was pretty cool to be able to play and get paid for it and tips and at an early age.
So have you always felt at home on the stage?
Yeah, kind of. I've always been a people person. I will travel and go somewhere, and I love connecting with people because I feel I learn so much. You can learn from books and learn from reading, but you learn from experience too, and meeting new people and connecting with them. And I think the stage is a really powerful way to do that. You connect with people in a way that is just you don't do otherwise. And so, yeah, I was pretty nervous the first few times, those first things, but I kind of got through that and got past that.
So what was one of the first jazz shows you saw live that really blew your doors down? That you said, I got to do this?
There really wasn't many opportunities for live jazz in our community. It's basically kind of country music or nobody wants to listen to it. It's kind of how it was when I grew up. But when I was 18 years old, I had some friends that took me to a Sting concert in Albuquerque. It's about 3 hours away. And the keyboardist, it was insane. The sounds coming out of that and the jazz nature of it. It was just like, it was, how is that even possible? I mean, how do you make those sounds? I had heard things I hadn't even heard before. And so that really kind of opened the door of intrigue of kind of trying to find out, wow, how do you do that? Because I think that's kind of the mystery of jazz is you hear these amazing things, and then how do they do that? And how do you make that sound? And so that was really kind of a solidifier. Was hearing that and hearing those textures and harmonies and those chords. And he just danced across the keys.
So if you could get into a jazz DeLorean and go and see a dream show at any place and time, where would you go? Who would you see?
That's a great question. There's a story about Herbie Hancock that he came up with, Watermelon Man. Like he was in a park and he just saw this guy selling watermelons. And he just kind of came up with the idea for it. And I think it'd be really cool to see something that was that fresh, that someone had come up with. I mean, it's so cool that he just saw this and came up with this idea for this really cool thing. And to be able to see something, maybe just a few days after that as he performed it with his band, getting together, I think being able to see something that fresh and that newly created would be amazing. I was able to see Herbie a year ago with a friend of mine, Delbert Anderson, who's a really talented jazz trumpeter in our area, Native American, and that was incredible. The sounds, like talking about jazz sounds that I didn't even know were possible. Some of it was just otherworldly, and it's interesting. He's in his 80s, I think, Herbie now, and the music was so fresh and so new and so, I mean, it just seemed so fresh,
Wow, that's amazing. I had no idea that he was that old either. He looks good.
Yeah, he does. He looks amazing. I had no idea either. I was shocked, and man, the musicians were just unbelievable.
Yeah, I bet. I've only heard good things from him and live shows. That's a great answer. So I want to ask about jazz, but kind of more in general. Why do you love music? Why do you love jazz?
I love history. I really do. I feel like if you want to know what the future is going to be like, start reading history. Because my wife and I were having a conversation last night about how, things have really changed and people have really changed, and I kind of challenged her on it. I said, well, times have changed. We have new cell phones and new ways of communicating, but I'm not sure human nature has really changed significantly in thousands of years. If we go back to the core basal desires and thoughts of human nature, I'm not sure it really does change that much. And so, jazz is such an incredible part of United States history and of our history. And we kind of make an annual pilgrimage out to Carlsbad, California, because at NAMM headquarters, there's the Museum of Making Music. And they have, through the 1900s, they have every decade and it shows how music was so influential over that decade. And it's interesting how music largely defines the decades in so many ways. It adds to the history, and in some ways even creates the history and adds so much to it. And so I think jazz is, it's just so real. It's just so, sadly, I was able to go in Cleveland last year to the Rock and Roll Museum there. And of course there were jazz musicians there as well, just some of the best that they honor, best musicians, and jazz and blues and rock often cross over. But one of the things that surprised me about it was how sad it was. There was a deep sadness. I mean, there was a joy at the accomplishments and the amazing music, but standing next to Eric Clapton's guitar where he wrote Tears in Heaven, when his son died, there was like a sadness, a profound sadness, and I realized what these people give. We're almost it's almost like a parasite kind of thing. We suck this life from them that they're giving, but it often comes from their pain. It often comes from their deepest struggle, their deepest internal conflicts, and it comes out as in this beautiful music, and it's the way they process it and express it. And so it's like we get to benefit by what people go through, and jazz, I think, is really powerful. The African American piece of it, what so many of them went through, the depression and suffering, it came out as amazing music and amazing history. So I think there's just a realness to it. It's an honest, real form of expression, and I think that appeals to me because there's just a lot of, it's nice to hear something real. It's nice to feel something real in life. I think everybody seeks that. What is real? Even in dealing with just people, is this a real person? Do they really care about me? Are they really talking to me? And I think jazz is very real, very raw at times. And it's so fresh because it's, the improvisational aspect of it just creates a freshness, and it's just exciting. It's almost like, what are we going to hear next? And it can be the same song but done so many ways and interpreted so many ways. It really gives the artist a freedom of expression, I guess.
So, we all have our muses. We all have our things that motivate us and make us do what we do. And you're married, you have 4 children. What kind of muses are your family and your children to you?
Kind of, when I compose or arrange or play, it's often inspired by the way that I feel, and often by experiences that I'll have with my family. Like we'll have a wonderful trip or a wonderful weekend, and I'll kind of translate that into a feeling musically, and so I'll go and want to play it and kind of record it, because for me, those feelings and those feelings I guess I have in great experiences or painful experiences, they're easy to translate, to express through music. And so I'll go and kind of record it and kind of record that idea or that motif so that I don't lose it, because I want to remember how it made me feel. So my daughter I have wonderful daughters. They're just amazing. They make us laugh, and our kids are just great. We take them everywhere. When we do get to perform, they usually are there loading and unloading. And we've actually, with Delbert and some others, have started a jazz jam in our community every Wednesday night. And it's really kind of revitalizing, the downtown scene and bringing artists together. Some will paint while they do it. And it's really been fun to have them come and be there and be a part of it and hear it and feel it and feel what music can do.
So everything's going to come down to this. Everyone has a version or an interpretation of you. Your family, your friends, your fans, your colleagues, but you know yourself best. Who do you think you are?
I think I'm still trying to find that out. I think that I guess I'm an explorer. I'm looking for opportunities to connect, to learn, to grow. I almost hesitate to call myself an artist because I think, sometimes we can do that and have this feeling that we somehow arrived, and there's not an arrival. This is a destination, and along the way, you just learn more and you grow from others, and the more you see, the more you play with others, the more you learn from others, the more you grow. And so I guess a work in progress, I'm wanting to become the best dad, the best person, the best musician that I can be. And so I'm just in that process. I'm seeking, people, experiences, textures, performance opportunities, visiting with people. Like we got to see David Benoit in concert with Alita Adams just a few nights ago. It's kind of the highlight of our trip out west, and it was really cool to see that this amazing person I've looked up to so much and loved his music is actually a great person too. Giving back to his community, performing at the community college where he went, leading a youth orchestra and doing these things. And so I guess that's who I want to be and who I hope I am, is that person that is learning and growing, but then giving others the opportunity to do it as well, for my children, for people who may not have the opportunity, to bring them musical opportunities, to perform for them, give them opportunities to perform and kind of outreach to the community around me.
That's a great answer, man. You've had some great answers. This has been a great conversation. Hey, thank you for opening up about your world of music and how you create it and what's going on. I really appreciate it, and good luck with the new album.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We'll be tuning in.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New Mexico, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Sheldon for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com for everything Neon Jazz. Go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.